Hello and welcome to another episode of Celluloid Zeros.
Aye.
I'm your co-host, Mike Carlin. Along with me for the ride is my twin brother, Jimmy. Say hi, brother Jimmy.
Rip them. Just rip them.
And with us today, in the third chair, if you will, is a very special guest. We took over his paper route in 1986 or somewhere thereabouts, just 3 years before the movie we are going to talk about came out. Please welcome Mr. Rob Salminen into the program. Welcome,
Robbie.
Taka, bro. There we go. All right.
We took his paper route, Michael. Now he's taking over the podcast.
Oh, my goodness gracious. 30 years in the making.
So, Rob, as we said, this is Celluloid Zeros. This is where Jim and I pick a movie that we liked or anticipated liking, I should say, back in the day. But then seen through adult eyes, it's why we call it a Celluloid Zero, because frankly, the movie just isn't good. And today we are talking about the 1989 wrestling themed movie, No Holds Barred.
Sorry.
featuring Hulk Hogan. I think before, and I know we all have a lot to say about this cinematography masterpiece, but before I do, I just want to pause and say, what did wrestling mean to you as a kid, Rob? Did professional wrestling mean anything to you?
Oh, guys, I mean, when we were growing up together, I mean, it was like a soap opera for men, really. I mean, I think the classic decade was 80 to 90, and you had storylines, and it was just oozing pseudo masculinity, and it was like, you had these characters that came out of nowhere. It was astonishing. It was prepubescent males come to life on the screen. Yes. And it was everything you wanted to be, and in every facet of your weird psyche came in costumes, and from Coco Beware to Jake the Snake to all these. I mean, it was astonishing. You couldn't look away.
You macho me.
Oh God.
And not until you got older did you realize what a dysfunction all of that was. I mean, whoa.
Some kind of coke-fueled storylines, just misogyny left and right.
Oh my God.
It's, come on.
These guys were so tweaked up, Mike. I mean, their hearts were like the size of like toaster ovens and stuff.
All dead.
They are. They're all gone.
I was to prepare for this. I was looking, and it's like the late so-and-so, the late so-and-so with the late so-and-so interviewed by the late so-and-so. Like they're all dead, man.
Yeah. Every Wikipedia entry was a professional wrestler, But what's funny about it though? There was also, it was very simplistic back then during that decade that you mentioned, Robbie. Like, you didn't have to guess who the good guys were or the bad guys were. It was very plain, black and white. There was a simplicity to it. But on the other hand, I mean, if you were a kid, like a latchkey kid, because we used to have those back then, and, you didn't have anybody home with you when you got home, I hate to say it, but you're probably getting informed on right and wrong by watching guys running around in their underwear, jumping on top of each other. I mean, as odd as that sounds.
I mean, geopolitical discussions were held between Russia was the bad guy and America. Yes. I mean, I was learning social studies watching Saturday morning wrestling,
100%. 100%. Oh, as a sidebar, how smart is, I mean, people make fun of him, but how smart is that Stallone? Because, he's been sitting on that Rocky IV director's cut for a long time. And what an opportunity now, Mike, to get that sucker back out in the theaters.
Oh, yeah.
100%. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to digress. But, so wrestling meant a lot to us, I guess, Mike. It's probably the answer to your question.
But specifically like the actor, the character that is Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
I mean, so iconic, and he was all about, he was like your typical, ideal American male role model, train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins or whatever the word was, and, he was always for good. I mean, he came out to Rick Derringer's Real American, it's like you looked up to this guy
Harley Davidson.
And he was your 100%. Hero. He was your hero.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He never, that caricature of him has never, first of all, his hair has never changed. Like he's always had that, like weird kind of thing happening. But I mean, like he was so intense and he was everything every man wanted to be. Like he was that secret desire to be a giant, huge American guy that would walk into any restaurant and just swoop up the prettiest girl and drive away in his Harley Davidson. Absolutely, Mike. I mean, he was professional wrestling.
Yeah,
he was.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And I always wonder, Robbie, because I know you work with young people and things like that, but
let me clarify. I'm a high school teacher. I need to clarify that statement. What you mean?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean.
I'm a high school English teacher. Yes, everyone, okay? Like,
well, it's great to have you on because, and I know we're going to talk about the steaming pile of whatever this movie was, but Michael and I have talked before, Robbie, and I'd like to get your opinion on this. Wrestlers during that magic decade, before kind of the anti-hero and all that sort of thing started to arise. There were heroes, there were heroes and there were villains, and kids had heroes. And I do wonder whether the concept of having heroes as young kids these days really resonates. And Michael and I had talked about it on a previous episode where we said, maybe one of the reasons why the hero is dying or maybe is dead, just to be cynical about it, is because nowadays, kids are all over media. They've created their own caricatures. They're not looking at heroes and caricatures on a TV screen wrestling every Saturday morning. They're creating their own caricatures online in a virtual world, in the multiverse. So who needs heroes anymore when you can portray whoever you want to be or whoever you want people to think you are? I don't know, but you have a lot more contact being a teacher with kids. Michael and I have grown children, really. What do you think about that?
I think you're right on the money, and I'm going to start with the fact that Saturday morning was a near religious event for us growing up, because we knew there were blocked times where you watched these things, half hour, and then wrestling came on, and you had your heroes. And I instantly, Jimmy, think to in Fight Club, where he talks about single serving friends and single serving, these kids today don't, and I'll be honest with you, they don't have heroes.
Yeah,
because everything is so fast and punctuated that to digest the concept of I need to wait another week to see what happens with Hogan, or I need to watch this entire hour because the prime main event is going to be at the end.
Yeah.
Or, however you want to put it. And I could just go to TikTok for 3 seconds or 13 seconds, or I could get my hit of my viral video and whatever. No, that they don't have heroes. They have people they enjoy, which is like, and I can't say that many of them have a positive impact on my students. I mean, they're not bad kids, but Cardi B is not a hero. Like it's a person who liked their music, which she's like the personification of this movie. Actually, like if you want to turn it into it's not something you look up to or find. And wrestling really wasn't something you looked up to. You just, I guess you'd say a hero, like, wow, this guy.
You had with it, you had your clear good guy, bad guy, face heel. And there was like, you really did have that. Now I think that the line is so blurred between hero and villain just in culture. And I don't know if part of that is just it being a symbol of the patriarchy, if you have a true hero, or if there's if there's just something to moral relativism now, and people just don't even think in those pure terms of like pure good and pure evil.
I think the simplicity of it is gone. The sheer just entertainment for entertainment value, I think, is not existent anymore. There was never really a big message behind wrestling. There wasn't like some sinister. It was good. We all knew it was goofy and ridiculous, and we loved it, I think, specifically for that. Yeah. And it was 100% male. Like it was 100% male. All right. And we owned that. and they weren't trying to take, no one was trying to take that from us growing up as young men. That was our thing. And, you know, we'd go outside in your backyard when we were 12 or 11 and we do drop the elbows and we jump off your couch and do stuff, you know, and I remember doing that, but that's gone. They don't do that anymore. And the concept of that is so alien to this generation that to roundabout Jimmy said, no, Jimmy, they don't.
Yeah. Well, before we, because this, I know, Mike, that this is going to go off. I know we're going to get off on a tangent. So let's just do the needful, and somebody jump on the grenade here and give the synopsis of this movie, and then we'll talk a little bit about it, and then maybe move on to more thoughtful subjects. But Mike, do you know what this was?
Well, I'm gonna ask Rob to take it away here.
Oh my God!
I want to give
You're gonna put him through this.
Okay, all right. So, as someone who briefly taught film in high school several years ago, I told Michael in the beginning of this one before you cut on, Jimmy, that like this should have been my very first lesson, and be like, all right, don't do this. Like, don't do this. All right. Because I was taking notes, like I was watching this, taking notes, trying to follow some cohesive, even remote plot line, and there was none. It jumps from the guy's paralyzed, all of a sudden we're in this like exploding factory. Then there's like a weird kind of rape scene, and he's on a motorcycle, and then there's like just tough guys coming out of trucks getting beat up by Zeus, and I'm not sure if Zeus is a robot or not. And then like there's the final fight, and then there's like this weird kind of manipulative James Bondish, you know, TV executive. I tried to put it all together, and like I was like, oh, I didn't even know what. And then the guy's paralyzed, but then at the end he's standing up and he's like, "Yay, we won!" And
I know Hulkamania can cure paralysis.
Yeah,
Mike.
I mean,
Did you know that?
Yeah,
it was apparently, man. I mean, forget the
Holy
vitamins.
crap.
Forget the vitamins. We've got, but it was I think an attempt at taking Saturday morning wrestling, and putting it into a 2-hour block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what was astonishing about this, Mike? And I mean, the only thing worse that we could possibly portray today along the same sort of theme of movies is if we picked the other Hulk Hogan movie, Suburban Commando, if you remember that thing.
Oh yeah. He was the nanny or something.
As bad as No Holds Barred is or was, that was even worse. But you know what's unfortunate for Hulk Hogan, like, so he's the biggest name in wrestling for all time, probably. I mean, you could make a Ric Flair argument. Everyone makes that argument. That's fine. I mean, whatever you think, it's fine. But there's no doubt how influential Hogan was on wrestling, and to some extent continues to be. But he's also, ironically, like the least successful crossover into movies. Because look at what happens now. I just watched a movie with Dwayne Johnson on TV on one of the streaming things called Red Notice, I think it was called. Yeah, and it's him, Ryan Reynolds, who's great, and Gail Gadot, who, you know, Michael wants in every film, and she's a magical, and it was fantastic. And most of what The Rock has done has been very good. I mean, he was on the Baller Show, because I think they don't try to take the character of The Rock from wrestling and put him in a movie. They come up with good movies, and then they take Dwayne Johnson, and they put him in a role that's appropriate, but it's not a wrestling role. Yeah, you know, and
I think that's one of the big you know fails of the movie, you know, is you know, Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan, who produced it. They both produced this and have writing credits on it, because apparently when they got the first draft of the script, they didn't like it, so they went into a hotel room for 72 straight hours and came back with what we just watched. So my big question is, what was going on in that hotel room?
I'd rather watch that movie. I'd rather watch that movie. I'd rather watch that movie. We call it 72. And it's
but Mike, I mean, Robbie, you know, you've got Andre the Giant was in The Princess Bride. Now, Andre the Giant, there's a limited number of roles that Andre the Giant can ever play, but he was very good in The Princess Bride.
I heard they were considering him for Tattoo from Fantasy Island, but
Oh,
that is
geez.
going a different direction.
God. But yeah, Macho Man Randy Savage was in the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. Now he played a wrestler in that, but it was entertaining. John Cena has been in a bunch of movies, and now he's the Peacemaker, which I think is a Marvel character. I think, I'm not mistaken.
It's DC, I believe. But
it's DC?
I hear what you're saying, Jim. The thing is, like, Hogan was really like their first time out of the gate doing something that big. I mean, sure, they put Jesse the Body in the Commando movie. Not Commando.
Predator. Yeah,
a seminal movie for the three of us.
100%. 100%.
That would not make it to the Celluloid Zero.
No way.
But yeah, this was their first time really taking a property of the WWF and trying to make that person a movie star.
Yeah,
Hogan didn't work. It just didn't work.
But Hogan was so big. I mean, his aura was so he was everything in wrestling. You almost couldn't change. I mean, what's he going to play? Is he going to play like an FBI guy? I mean,
wasn't he in Thunder in Paradise? I mean, he was like a mercenary or something on that.
God, I don't even know.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure he was on a.
He's so one-dimensional.
Yeah,
that like you could like there are wrestlers that are zero-dimensional. Zero-dimensional. Like you could not take the Ultimate Warrior and put him in anything at all. Because I'm not relatively certain that guy could talk, but I mean, and he's dead too, by the way. But like, Hogan is so one-dimensional; he has to be Hogan.
I think you're right. And that's a limiting factor for Hulk Hogan. I mean, now I think what he does is he sells merchandise. He sells like Hulk Hogan merchandise through his website, Instagram thing. He signs autographs. He owns a restaurant, I think in Clearwater, Florida, Mike.
Yeah, that's where he signs the his merchandise. I think you can see him there.
Is that a sad commentary on basically the king of our childhood reduced to playing that caricature every day he wakes up and he takes a shower and he looks in the mirror and he's like, I gotta go be Hogan. That's kind of sad, man.
It is. I mean, he had some struggles. I mean, his divorce was obviously quite publicized. His son
he got involved with Bubba the Love Sponge's wife, if you remember that. There was like a sex tape or something.
Yeah. And they sued him, and Hogan's wife wound up sleeping with Hogan's son's best buddy. It was a weird. And then Hogan's son was like arrested or killed for drag racing or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
he killed somebody, killed a kid, and himself was badly injured but recovered. I don't know. He's had some heartache in his life, and I'm sure he's not doing what he thought he'd be doing now after all those years of success.
How old is he? Can anybody look that up? Like, how old is he right now?
I'm gonna guess about 67, Mike, but you're better.
Probably not a bad guess. I was gonna say 72.
Let's know that he's crossed that Rubicon yet, but let's see. Oh wow, okay. Ric Flair, although I know he was not what you asked for, but is 73 years old.
I was on a flight with Ric Flair and my brother-in-law, who is a wrestling fan, grew up down here in the South. And we were on the flight with him and we were like, oh my gosh, Ric Flair, whatever. So we got off and we landed in New York and we go to the baggage claim and he's standing right for the baggage claim. And I'm like, Trey, go up and say something. Go up and do the woo, and let me tell you something. I walked behind him and I did this. Woo. And I was so intimidated. This is an old man. This is like 6 or 7 years ago. I was so intimidated by this guy, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
The answer: 68 years old. Hulk Hogan.
Jimmy, nice job.
68.
68.
I don't know.
At 68, I don't want to be doing that, guys.
Yeah, I know.
Here's the one redeeming quality of this film.
Oh wow!
It has nothing to do.
It ended like what?
That's right.
There was no sequel.
It on the credits. Like
it has got nothing to do with anything in the movie. we were supposed to go, Jim, I don't know if you remember this. We were supposed to go see Batman with Michael Keaton because it had come out right around the it had to been at the same time. And we couldn't get into the theater because, the tickets were sold out. So ironically, and maybe not oddly, plenty of tickets for No Holds Barred. So I just remember there was one of the first movies that Paul, who is our brother-in-law, my sister's husband, he took us to that. And that's the one, I think, redeeming quality of this film is that particular memory.
Wow. That's a pretty specific memory. And wow, is that, I can't imagine how long this film would run in a theater. Or perhaps looking back 30 years, do we have the knowledge and the wisdom of 30 more years of technology and CGI and the internet and blah, blah, blah. We're back 30 years ago, wow, this is a cool movie. Nah, I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know that anything. I mean, if you went to this movie because you were a Hulk Hogan fan and you just wanted to see, to Rob, to your point, you just wanted the extension of weekend wrestling and to see him face off against Zeus. And I don't know. They tried to make it seem like, unlike wrestling as we know it, in this movie, it was a real fight. So Zeus was really throwing punches and smashing blocks of concrete with his fists.
Oh, he broke the guy's back. I mean, it was like and then the best part of the whole thing, the best part, and Mike, I instantly was dying. At the final fight, he knocks the wheelchair guy, Ricky or whatever, he knocks him down, and he walks past him, and he gives him a boot right in the sternum. He just bam. So it wasn't, and the wheelchair guy was he's starting to move again, and he gives him this merciless size 14 right to his heart. I'm like, oh my God, this is brutal.
Oh my gosh. Randy, Mike, that was his name. Randy and Rip. Holy Christmas. I don't know. I don't know.
Anything redeeming for you, Jim, from this film?
I mean, I could stretch it and say, the love between two brothers, the connection, the family, the fact that Hogan turned down a significant amount of money offered by whoever that guy was. He's been in a bunch of movies, but he played the evil Vince McMahon character in this movie, and he tried to get Rip to join his wrestling alliance, but Rip refused and proceeded to take the check that had been written from his individual Wells Fargo account. And he just shoved it into his mouth. I won't be here when this check clears, brother. Oh no. So I don't.
Oh my God! Could you take Hogan and put him in any job, and he would act like a cashier or anything?
I know. So maybe kids could learn that the value of family and brotherhood and the value of not being greedy and doing what's right. I don't know. Maybe that there's some moral lesson there, Mike, I guess. And of course, Zeus was a big scary monster, and Hogan had to stand up and defeat the big scary monster. And we all have big scary monsters we have to face off in life. I mean, that kind of thing. So I could come up with something, but I mean, not much.
I'm going to play something for you now that would not fall under the category of being redeeming.
Okay. Oh boy.
Oh wow.
What's that smell?
Did you see him rip? He ripped the door off the car. He just ripped the door off car. And did you see him like sniffling in his face? I don't know what direction he was given by the director, but he looked like a rabid dog, before he said.
That hurt my feelings. Like that feel like how do you do? All right, so here's what I want you to do, Hulk. I want you to and that's the word dookie is the best thing you could come up with for that particular scene. Okay.
And he obviously craps his pants, pees in his pants, and somehow the laws of physics are reversed because the moisture actually goes up like the small of his pack instead of just like sitting in his lap. Like, I mean, I don't know. Again, what was the thinking there? I mean, I guess because it's funny for 11-year-olds in 1989, maybe. I guess. I don't know.
That's who you got to be targeting that to, right? I mean, that's the age group who's seeing that movie. But
we were what, 14?
Yeah.
89, so 14, 15, sure.
14, 15. So almost on the cusp of leaving that behind us.
Yes.
And
I think we're on the other side of should have known better, to be quite like, if you're 13, 14, you shouldn't be rushing out to see this film. But
no. Like if your kid does something bad, you should make them watch this. Like that's the thing that should hang. Like you should have a DVD. No, you should have a VHS tape of this hanging by the refrigerator as a reminder. Don't mess up your grades because guess what?
Well, Rob, we've Michael and I have had this discussion quite a bit. We talk about movies. We tend to talk about movies from like 40 years ago on this podcast, 30 years ago. And one of the common themes that we always talk about is that movies were kind of simplistic. There was kind of, I mean, I know this plot was, I mean, Stephen Hawking couldn't figure this plot out. I don't know what was happening in this movie, but normally they're very kind of like they move sequentially and there's the lead character and he's got to overcome XYZ. And the comment that we've made before is that, kids are not terribly interested in that kind of a story, that kind of classic story anymore. I mean, even some of these Marvel movies that have come out that have been really big, they're not really that easy to follow. Like I've watched them a bunch of times, different movies, and it's hard to understand exactly what's happening at any given point in those films. And I don't know. You get the sense that kids these days are too cynical. They're too dark. I don't mean necessarily in an evil way. I just mean they're cynical. They're not going to get lost in a simplistic story about a hero on a quest to overcome challenges. I don't know that we've talked about that before. And what do you think about that?
I think it's twofold. I think it's designed to be that way right now. Like, if you look at Marvel movies, they're super razzle dazzle, and it's explosions and lightning and characters. But if you really were to break it down, and let's say you read them as a novel, you would be like, what is happening right here? It relies too much on visual stimuli and all these like crazy spaceships. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love it. I eat it up. But as far as cinema, if you want to use that word, like, it's not. And I think it's meant to be that way, Jim, because like the only reason they're making movies like this is because it's a huge generator of revenue, a huge generator of revenue. Yeah. But if you look at more, I mean, so I watched Dune. I'm a huge Frank Herbert fan, and I watched Dune and I thought that was perfect. I mean, I was like, wow, this is a great film and it's beautiful and it's awesome. But a kid wouldn't. I mean, I've got some kids that are reading it right now, some seniors that are reading it right now in my class, and they love it, but it's not something that I don't think would sell to an audience like that. It sells to people our age who can sit and concentrate for 2 hours.
Are you talking about the original Dune, Robbie, or the remake that's
The remake,
okay.
the original one was kind of silly, and the one we grew up with, and
Right.
the remake is beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Okay.
It's a piece of film. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
But like, you can't compare the two. Marvel is candy. You know, it's brain candy. It's, let me turn my brain, which is cool. If you're, because kids today, man, they have it rough. Like, we pretend like they don't because they have all these things, but their world, guys, is so much faster than the one you and I.
Yeah.
You know, so I watch them, especially these past 2 years. I watch them struggle, and mentally and physically, and they want to escape. Okay, go for it. Go watch Thor kill Thanos. Cool, awesome.
Yeah.
You know? But don't pretend like it's anything other than what it is, which is just brain candy.
Robbie, do you think that the kids are put in this situation nowadays because parents are just like taking childhood away from them in a sense, because they're layering on expectations from the time when they're really young? They have to be enrolled in certain classes, they have to be learning a language, they have to be playing a musical instrument, they have to be orienting themselves towards higher education by the time they're 7 or 8. There has to be a trajectory for them. Do you think that that's a contributing factor? They're just not able to be kids anymore? What's going on?
That's a deep question, Jim. Like, yeah, I agree in the fact that their childhood has become much more punctuated and small, and you know, they don't play anymore. They don't go out and play like we play. They sit on a screen and they do things, and they actually allow others to imagine for them, and then they watch it. Whereas as we rode our bikes together, and we did silly things, and you know, whatever, we played in the woods, and we let our imagination create the adventure that then usually led to one of us crying. But like, you know, like,
or having burns somewhere on our body.
Yes,
yeah, or blood at some point. It was blood, you know. But that was part of growing up. And to hit your point, Jim, like, the pressure, I don't know where it comes from, but it's prevalent. It's there, and you know, we don't. And the great joke that we're playing on these kids in a cynicism point of view is, they don't have to have all of these things. Like, it doesn't change. Having 10 AP credits doesn't mean anything anymore, because everybody has 10 AP credits.
Yeah.
You know, you know, from the Incredibles, when we're all special, no one is, you know. And it's a shame. I'd rather have my students, you know, like, when we read Walt Whitman, I make them go outside and take their shoes and socks off, and we have to read it in the grass.
Yeah.
Like, we don't read it indoors. So
Yeah.
we have different experiences. Now, is it cultural? Yeah. I mean, a lot of my students who are second or even first generation immigrants from other countries, they're so hyper focused
Yeah.
that they're missing life. Like, they're going to
Yeah.
be 18 and never go on a date, and never kiss a girl, and never, like, go out and have pizza.
You're describing Jimmy's life.
Well, I wasn't going to go there, Michael, but I mean, if you're going to go there,
Thanks a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
this podcast, Michael just takes shots at me every week.
well, Jimmy, I mean, I actually spoke about you not too long ago when a student of mine was asking if they should go study abroad. I said one of my best friends growing up studied in Ireland abroad, and he,
Yeah.
you know, you told me that was one of the most fantastic experiences you had. You know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was in a different environment. I had to take care of myself, figure things out. It was very helpful. And I was just texting with my son about whether he plans on studying abroad, and the answer seems to be yes.
I wish I had.
Why study abroad when you can study
He get multiples, but
any broads?
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
the story I remember about you studying abroad
Here we go.
in
Here we
Paris,
go.
it was Paris, right?
Yes,
Was
Ireland.
Gregory?
I was in France. Yeah,
They wouldn't let him in Ireland. There'd be a beer shortage. Was there something that happened to you in Paris involving an umbrella?
Yeah, I got upset. I don't remember exactly what it was. Probably over a woman, I guess, maybe. But I smashed an umbrella outside of the Notre Dame Cathedral with Greg there. I was angry. I don't remember exactly what happened, but yes, I confess I smashed an umbrella. Well, Robbie, just before I lose track, because one of the other things we've talked about is so heroes dying, but also friendship dying. You know, who's anybody's best friend anymore? You know, who's the guy that you can turn to in a pinch, who's going to save your life if it needs to be saved, who's going to, you know, sacrifice for you, take the fall for you to protect you. Where's that ethic? Where's that honor? Where's that code? Does that exist anymore? And the related point, which I think is what you were getting at, is that the most valuable thing in life is not the 10 AP credits. The most valuable thing in life is the quality of your relationships, the interpersonal relationships, the flesh and blood relationships, not the virtual thing, not how many likes, not all that crap, just how many people do you really have that strong bond with that you build over the course of a lifetime? I mean, I don't want to sound cynical because I really try to be a positive person. I do. But I look around and I just really worry about it because I think we're headed to, you know, we're headed right off a cliff.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'll turn it around a little bit. It does exist. It's still there. Kids are still kids, man, and they're hilarious. Like every day I go in and I'm like, what's going to happen? I have no idea what's, you know, but their concept of the word friend, like the three of us are friends forever, lifelong friends. And when any one of us would be in trouble, the others would rally instantly, right? But the concept of the word friend now is a digital concept of, I've got 790 friends on Facebook. No, you don't. You don't have any, you know, but I see these kids in school come through my class year after year after year, and they're still with the same friend. So it's still there, buddy. It's still there. We don't see it anymore. And I don't know, we've become a society of bad news.
Right.
I don't know why we don't emphasize the positive and go, hey, these kids have been friends for this long, or whatever. You could fill in the variable. But yes, to hit your point, Jimmy, it's there, buddy. It's still, we never talk about, we can have 99 awesome kids, but we're only going to talk about the one kid who's a pain in the neck.
Right.
It's
right.
still there, man. It's
good.
Still
Good. I am relieved to hear you say that. Truly.
it's still there, you know.
Mike, you look like there's something that's going to cross that.
No, I mean, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I was waiting for it too. I was waiting for some kind of banner or some kind of thing to happen, man. I was like, uh-oh.
I wish I could have come up with something brilliant to say. But if there's a second good thing for me that came out of this movie, was just kind of stimulating this conversation today. And who would have thought we would have used terms like moral relativism in a conversation about no holds barred?
Well, I'd like to mention the lack of OSHA protocol in the factory scenes, because everything's exploding and is on fire, and there's not a single hard hat. There's not a single sign, no injuries for this. Like, I was appalled. That they worked.
Yeah. Forget about the vaccine mandate in the workplace. Yeah. I mean, OSHA would have.
It doesn't matter how many vaccines you have if you're going to have molten metal poured on you while giant men beat each other to death. Like, it doesn't
I just never seen anything like it. I mean, everything.
Where were the cops? Where were the cops?
There's no cops.
Like this, there's no way. Like, can you imagine seeing that in the distance? Like, we're getting a piece of pizza, and all of a sudden, like, things are flaming up. Hey, isn't that the factory down at the end of town? Like, no one's curious about what's happening. It's like a rave hosted by Satan. It's like I loved it, man. Like, exactly. How do you pull this off? Kudos to you, you know, for pulling this off.
Yeah, reminded me, Jim, of the big fight scene in the Chuck Norris movie from a couple weeks ago.
I know.
Another hero of ours, though, growing up.
No, another one, sure, but you know,
100%. Chuck's phenomenal. I mean, it pained me to levy that critique on Silent Rage, Mike, the last episode, because I love Chuck Norris, but yeah, that movie was just a shit show. It was horrible.
Is Chuck Norris a clown? You know, and I'm actually afraid to say that out loud because I think he's gonna
I don't know what you're doing. I mean, your closet's about to open and you're gonna get a spinning back kick.
Is he a clown? Is Hogan a clown? I mean, are they really just goofs in disguise.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, have we been bamboozled to think that this is what masculinity is, when in reality, like, Norris is a clown and Hogan's a clown? You know, these are guys that probably don't have a lot of self-respect.
Well, I mean, at least I think you point to Chuck Norris and say, okay, well, he was a fighter. He is highly skilled in the martial arts.
Sure.
And he had a pretty decent run of, of movies and TV shows. I mean, it's not like
Texas Ranger.
yeah, maybe that he had all the missing in actions. There, I mean, certainly there's a certain genre that he fits in. Like, I wouldn't put him in, Terms of Endearment Part 2.
That would be awesome.
Although
Madison County, it's amazing.
Maybe in the bitches of Madison County. Yeah, but I think if he's a clown, he's in on the joke. I don't think Hogan was in on the joke. I think he was really trying to be earnest and serious, and that's what we got.
It's amazing that Hogan is still alive. I mean, these guys, they were designed to be like bottle rockets, like they shoot off really quick.
Yeah.
But their lifespan is not supposed to be that extensive. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, dead. Macho Man Randy Savage, dead. Andre the Giant, dead. The co-star in this movie, Tiny Lister, okay, Zeus died of like heart disease at age 62. And I'm just reading from the Bastion of Accuracy Wikipedia. On August 31st of 2012, Lister agreed to plead guilty to conspiring to commit mortgage fraud in a scheme that led to $3.8 million in losses. I guess he was fraudulently buying homes. I don't know what he was doing.
How do you do business with this cat? Like, hey, I've got it. Like, how do you sit at, like, well, he was also the president in The Fifth Element, so that was like, I mean, he
that's right.
Yeah, climbed the ladder. He climbed the ladder. He was the president of Earth. So I mean, keep dreaming, baby. Keep dreaming. That follow your
That's
dream.
right. The great Bruce Willis movie.
But all those guys are gone, and
they're all gone.
So did they know it? Did they make that pact with the devil? Did they know, hey, I'm going to burn out quick. I'm going to have fun and fame in the 80s and 90s. I'm going to do coke and all types of stuff.
Yeah.
They kind of knew. I mean, like the Mickey Rourke movie, The Wrestler, like, all right, I know my window is this. Wow.
Faustian bargain, I think, is what that was. Yeah. They're all gone.
But all those guys, you have to picture them growing up as high school. I mean, you look at on some of these sites I went to, like, they show them they almost all played football or wrestled.
Yeah.
Big dudes, but they probably were like, I'm going to work in the factory like my dad did. Or, I'm not going to go anywhere. We're all coming from No Town, Iowa, or Smallville, Oklahoma, where all of a sudden I get seen, and now I can be this thing that even for 5 or 7 or 12 years, and then I'm dead. I mean, do you take that deal? Do you do it?
I think people do it all the time, both men and women. But the thing is, it's like, maybe they didn't know, how, like, they always said, in the 50s, they didn't know cigarette smoking was bad for you. Maybe back then they didn't know that the steroids and the muscle building was going to make their hearts explode.
You could say that about professional athletes today. I mean, professional football players, such a small percentage of high school football players become college football players, and such a small percentage of college football players actually wind up playing in the NFL. And then an even smaller percentage of players that actually play in the NFL play for more than just a few years before they either get injured or they get traded and nobody wants them anymore. And it's a rare professional athlete who reaches a certain level, like an Andrew Luck, who says, before I am incapacitated, and I don't pretend to know what motivated Andrew Luck, but he did get out of football before he needed to, or before other people maybe thought he needed to, and he cut his career short. And he was a very talented quarterback, but he left. Most of those guys, they're making that bargain. They're saying, I'm going to play for as long as I can. My money's not guaranteed. So even if I feel like shit, I got to get out there and try to earn my paycheck.
Yeah.
And ride it as long as I can. Unfortunately, many of them, wind up with cognitive dysfunction because of, concussions or just like broken bones, and you're never going to be the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but so and everyone watches it and we all get excited about it. I'm guilty as anybody. I love football season, but you're really, it's not unlike the Coliseum. I mean, somebody's going to get hurt during a football game. Everyone's getting bigger and stronger, and somebody's going down.
You guys should see. I teach at a powerhouse athletic high school here in North Carolina, and I coach varsity women's lacrosse. And we send Division I athletes all the time. Like, girls are getting signed left and right, and those girls are, they're in such really good shape. But then you look at the football players, they're enormous, and they all have nutritionists, and they all do 2-a-days, and they have a private speech. And you look at these guys and they're invincible. I mean, people move to this neighborhood just to go to this high school, 3-time state champs.
Yeah.
And they're in my class, and they're 6'3", 6'4", 260, 270, 315, just hulking 18-year-olds.
Jesus.
And you're like, man, your body is not designed to be like this, and then a lot of them go, and they do go to play Division I, and they get hurt or whatever, and they realize, well, the grass wasn't always greener. But man, I mean, it's just like, we were never that big in high school. We were never that athletic.
Yeah.
There was always that one guy, that one wrestler or that one football. We knew him. Everybody knew him, right? But
probably had a nickname.
Yeah, like, the tank or whatever, but now it's everybody. It's everyone. And it's just like, holy smokes. And you watch them play. It's like, wow, man, this is so beyond my understanding,
Just to wrap up on the movie.
I understand now, fellas.
Yes.
Can we come up with what we feel is the most cringeworthy part of the movie for each of us individually? I'll start off while you chew on it. I'll share. There's a scene when he's in the parking garage or something, and he leaps up onto like the hood of the car, and he clearly had been on a spring or something, but they put it in slow motion with like this expression on his face. And to me, when I saw that, I'm like, it can't be cringier than this.
I think the scene where the girl is being assaulted in the parking lot, and he pulls up wearing his blue lightning skin tight thing, and he says, "Are you okay?" And the would-be assailant flees, and he checks, and he goes, "All right, here we go." And he goes and he puts the motorcycle between the legs of the assailant, where he's now on the front fender, and he lets him go flying into a tree, and he gives him this, and it knocks him out, and he gives him this thing. He goes like this vroom, like that. I was like, what am I watching? What's happening here?
Well, I mean, the easy answer, Mike, is the clip you played where, this weird, like, waxed figure looking guy who peed his pants. It was ridiculous. The scene was ridiculous. But, when Randy's sitting there in the wheelchair and Rip is in trouble at the end with Zeus, and he needs the strength. He does. He needs the strength to come back, and Randy gives him that strength by moving his pinky.
His pinky, yes. Yes, my spine is magically healed.
Yes, because like nothing else can move, but somehow the message gets sent to the finger. It just defies logic. Nobody can make any sense of that. So yeah, Mike, I don't know. What else can we say? I don't know there's anything else we can say about this movie.
I mean, is there anything that you guys think could have made this movie better in a sense of not that it would ever be a blockbuster, but just a little bit better? Is there anything that could have been done or lost cause?
Jimmy?
You know, if they tried to, so you have the character of Vince McMahon, you know, the evil promoter guy. I keep calling him Vince McMahon, but he's the guy that has the competitive wrestling organization. He wants Hogan to join in the movie.
Yeah.
You know, if they try to, so keep the characters the same. Hogan is Hogan. He's the star of this other organization. Okay. And then you try to tell the story of the dirty nature of the wrestling business, the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, you know, the search for talent, pumping up Zeus with all kinds of drugs to make him even bigger than Hogan, and the impact that has on his health. You know, you could have maybe introduced some reality to the story, I guess, and then still had the fight with Zeus and the two stars of the two competing organizations at the end. I guess you could have done that. But I mean, that's asking a lot, guys. I don't know. I mean
it's a completely different movie.
It's the wrestler, basically, right? It's the wrestler.
Different movie.
Yeah, it's a different movie.
So any suggestions? I mean, you taught film, Rob. Aside from never letting it be made, what would make it a better movie?
Well, all right. So as I was taking notes on this, and another film cinematic classic came to mind, which was The Running Man, a Schwarzenegger masterpiece that
fantastic.
Right? That was another one we grew up with.
Amen.
And Mike, to think about, like, here's what I think could have actually made this a good movie, right? And I'm stretching that word. If they had taken all of the characters from the WWF and incorporated those personalities into, like, you had to climb this ladder to get to Zeus, right? So you have to fight Jake the Snake and you have to fight Brutus, but like weird, like that 80s music montage where there's things happening and whatever like that. And then you finally get where Zeus defeats all of the characters we know, not some random big guy that just gets out of a, that would make me emotionally vested in the plot where Hogan is now our champion. He's our Thor. He's our guy that's like, I don't want to get involved. I'm too morally good to get involved, but you got to save us. You got to represent. And then you have the cripple guy, whatever. Like you have that. Oh, wait, am I allowed? Like whatever. Right? You have him. But that, I think, if you were to make that happen, almost like a kickboxer type of, like.
Sure.
Like you're talking about a TV, like a movie version of Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Oh my God, that's brilliant. That's
like you're going against Glass Joe and Don Flamenco, and you got to keep going up the ranks.
Oh my
until
God.
You get to the bull guy, until you get to Tyson.
Mike, you might be onto something for Cinema Zero. You might take 1 week to just review the worst video games of growing up.
Interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Like Mike Tyson's Punch Out is an awful game. It's an it does nothing. It does not. That's it. And you get the star. And how many hours did we waste in your house?
Many.
Playing
that and the other game we played, much more apropos to the topic of this film, was pro wrestling. Where they didn't have it licensed from the WWF, so like all the characters looked like
the green guy, like the Mexican wrestler bit his head. Remember that?
The guy who spit the stuff. Who was that guy? Who used to put the stuff in his mouth. He used to spit it at people.
Oh God,
Killer Khan. I think it was Killer Khan.
I think Rob, if I remember correctly, Rob was a big Castlevania fan, right?
Still.
Yeah.
I just watched the series on Netflix.
Yeah,
the second
season
season was phenomenal. Yeah. Mike, if you have access to sharing a video with us, can you look up wrestling sock puppet flute? Okay, now fellas, wait till you see this. Wait till you see this. Okay. And it's, you have to find it. This is like, I can't describe, I don't have words. I'm an English teacher. I don't have words for this. Like, you have to watch
wrestling sock puppet
flute.
Like
flute.
Snake charm.
Oh my God.
If anything comes up here.
Fellas, wait for this. This is just,
I don't know if this is it.
It's a guy with a sock on his face. I watched this. Like, I played.
Hold on, I'll share it. We'll see if this is it.
Oh my gosh.
Let's see.
Cousins.
No, that's not it. It's
Like it's an honest to goodness like sock puppet.
yeah. Here it is. Wait for it. Oh,
What is this?
that's his character. That's the thing. Oh, he gets possessed. Oh. It's amazing. Look at this, a midget. It's everything you want. It's everything you want. Oh, but wait. There's another one.
Huge victory for you tonight over Jinder Mahal.
That's the
How are you
cool one.
feeling?
Pretty good, you know.
But
Great thing.
another guy, there's another clip where another guy has a flute on the other side and they battle back and he's like, no, it's killing me. No, I'm getting you. No, it is. I watched it. One of my kids shared it with me because they know I like wrestling, and they were like, I had no words. I had no words for that.
It's gotten, this is how I imagine like SNL skits get written. I think that's how wrestling gets written, where every week, people have to stay up for 76 hours and come up with storylines.
Like,
that is a 4 a.m. idea right there.
wait.
That's a North Korean prison is what that is, man. That's
There has to be an exemption from OSHA in wrestling. I mean, guys they're cutting their faces, they're bleeding all over the place, they're throwing snakes on each other. They're hitting each other with. Remember the honky tonk man? He was hit with a guitar. Oh my God!
Make this thing. Guy brought a giant python into the.
I mean, it's just so bizarre.
So
bizarre?
Who was the penultimate wrestler? Like, who was the greatest caricature? Not Hogan.
Macho Man Randy Savage, hands down.
Oh,
Mike,
no one better. No one better
Mike,
than Macho Man.
Mike, could you Google this? I just want Robbie to see this. Google on YouTube, Macho Man and Cream rises to the top.
Oh, he shared it with me. I love it.
Oh, that one. Okay, you saw that one.
Sent it to me, I think. Oh, like he's so high.
He's gone. He's gone. He must have been.
Hold on.
Was Mean Gene the most patient man in the world? Like, was he just like, oh, get me out of here?
What was his day like?
I bet he drank a lot.
Macho Man Randy Savage is not happy. Unjustifiably in a position that I'd rather not be in. Outside interference. I'm living in a nightmare. But the cream will rise to the top. Oh, yeah. I am the cream. Yeah, let me say it to you. Let me say it out loud. The cream of the crop. I am the cream. I am the cream, yeah. The cream of the crop! I'm on my way. On balance, off balance, doesn't matter. Nobody does it better.
431,000 views of that.
100%. He was I'm sorry. You asked like the ultimate personality.
You don't get better than that. Maybe you could argue Ric Flair, but you don't get better than Macho Man.
What about Piper? What about? I mean,
100%. Piper was fantastic.
I think he was genuinely nuts.
Yes.
Like, I think that a lot of the other guys were like fueled by substances. I think Roddy Piper was just a lunatic.
Yeah.
He's dead too. Remember Piper's Pit?
Piper's Pit?
Fantastic.
Well, he also made he didn't do much after it, but They Live. I mean, he starring role in a big
film.
Very legitimate film.
He did other acting too. He acted until just recently before his death. I mean, he actually had a decent career after wrestling. It's just like everybody else, his heart was shot. I mean, these guys, everybody was on something, and back then nobody cared about monitoring, your blood count and all this stuff. These guys had explosives in between the chest cavity. That's it. Just blew up.
Insane to think about living that life. Like you must get addicted to it because you're getting your ass kicked every week. Like you've got to feel like you fell down a flight of stairs.
Yeah.
And you're just like, can't wait to do it again. The crowd and women and, the backstage stuff. And all of a sudden you got a little bit of money in your pocket. And that must have been pretty addictive, man.
And you think these WWE doctors were being shy about, the painkillers? Like these guys, these guys were getting all kinds of painkillers, all kinds of, medicines to help them recover, and steroids obviously do that. I mean, it's just like, it's a shit show, and it still is. I mean, these guys are even bigger now than they ever were. I mean, they're huge, and they're not only like 7 feet tall. They're 7 feet tall with like no body fat.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense how these guys look. I mean, and the Rock is he hasn't wrestled in years now. He's retired from wrestling. I don't know if you guys watched the Super Bowl when he kind of introduced both teams. He looks ridiculous. I mean, he's going to be in this Black Adam movie. He's Black Adam.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it because I think it's an interesting character, but he's ridiculous. He looks ridiculous. I hope he lives. I like him. I really don't want The Rock to die, but I don't know.
So here's the question. Is it a question of having a good, and not a manager like a ringside manager, like the Mouth of the South or the $1 Million Man, like none of that shit. Like, is the difference between like the reason Hogan survived the storm, was it the people in the back office? Like, Macho Man, I'll do it myself, like, and shit like those guys, are they just spiraling out of control, or does someone actually tell Hogan, we can make a lot of money for a long time if you listen to me? Like a handler, like a good handler.
I most likely, I mean, you don't get to where he was without having, a good talent team behind you or a good managerial team. But actually something you said there, Rob, just brought something to mind for me. If you do look at all of the managers, how that would just not fly. The casting of those personalities.
Forget it.
The Undertaker and Paul Bearer, that's the greatest thing ever. That is the greatest thing ever.
But just think about like just the racial component. You have Slick, who was basically a pimp.
He was a pimp.
He was a pimp.
Huggy Bear. He was Huggy Bear.
A pimp.
Nice, Jim.
You had Mr. Fuji, who was the evil Japanese guy, right? Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, who was your redneck, strung out Elvis type.
Miss Elizabeth, who got slapped around every week. Like,
Elizabeth, down that aisle.
Miss Elizabeth, pap. Oh, but even the wild Samoans or the bushwhackers, like they were living stereotypes that you would never be able to get away with now.
No, I mean, Tito Santana's finishing move was the flying jalapeno. Yes. That was the flying elbow. I mean, you're just not going to do that stuff. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe you could. Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say that even some of the personalities, you had the Iron Sheik as a bad guy, right? Of course, I think you mentioned before, we had the Nikolai Volkov,
Boris Zukov,
right? Yeah. So you have these things which today would certainly not be considered politically correct.
Dude, are we missing out though on, like this PC stuff? Like, we turned out okay. Like, are we missing out on these really ridiculous? It's ridiculous for being ridiculous sake, and that was the purpose and point of it. And no one took it no one was influenced negatively by any of this stuff. Right. It was hilarious. It was
just like we all grew up listening to Iron Maiden, and to my knowledge, none of us has ever been to a ritualistic killing. Rob, you seem
We'll stack, Mike. I didn't
seem like
catch
there could be a
that.
story there. I don't know.
prank caller. You know, like, yeah, but I mean, to take that away is basically taking away choice. We battle a lot as English teachers with like, we're not allowed to teach this book. We're not allowed to,
Sure. Yeah.
which I don't subscribe to at all. I'm like, I'm teaching what I want to teach. And if you want to have a meeting about it, great. But like, if we lose the ability to see colors and caricatures and satire, then we're never going to have what I think is the most beneficial personality trait, which is a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like you take that away from, I mean, we spend the majority of our friendship laughing. You know, if you take that away and you become serious and you're offended by everything, well, then you're going to miss the majority of life, man.
I have to say, Robbie, you know, this is not a liberal point of view. It's not a conservative point of view. It's just my honest opinion. When institutions make decisions about this book's okay, this book's not okay, we're not allowed to teach this book because it has a certain word in it that, you know, we don't want kids to hear. It makes me nervous. You know, it makes me nervous because it's not going to be too long before the decision, like you might support censoring a certain book. You might support the banning of a certain book from a school library or from a class. But what happens when it's another book that you want your child to learn, that you want your child to hear and read about and talk about in class, and then they ban that one? Where does it end? I mean, it just makes me nervous. Now, I think like it's not just black and white. Like, I don't know that we need to have, you know, the crucifix submerged in a bucket of urine and put it in an art museum. I mean, you know, we could probably make a distinction between that and Samuel Clemens. You know, I mean, we're rational people,
Yeah.
but yeah, the censoring stuff makes me nervous. It you know, we're a few generations away from like burning books in large pyres and
Oh, you're not generations away, you're weeks away.
yeah, well, it makes me nervous.
You know what? The one thing that everyone I think has to understand is the business of education is business. It's business. It's the majority of most state budgets. And, you know, it's like pruning a tree for these bean counters. Like if we snip this book and do this here and do this, if you're in it, I mean, I've been teaching for 20 years. If you're in it long enough, they come back because everyone forgot what we did in the first place. So no one ever talks about the books that get unbanned. There's no unbanned list, right? So they come back around, and Orwell's, you know, was the same thing where people disappear. He calls them unpeople. These are unbooks, right? And they come back, and all of a sudden now To Kill a Mockingbird is back in the rotation. It's like, boy, wasn't that banned 8 years ago? Well, do the math. 8 years, you have 4 years of high school, and then, you know, from whatever, we're taking it from 6th grade or 5th grade. All of a sudden, all those kids are gone, and those parents don't care anymore. Now we recycle it and we do it again. I've seen it come through 2 or 3 times, and it's like, that's why I don't subscribe to it. I'm like, this is going to be back in a couple of years later. We're learning this. And, you know, there's not too much out there that is really banned, you know, and I don't believe in it. I think that there's age appropriate stuff, and I believe that there's appropriate things that you should talk about and not talk about. But if you don't talk about not talking about it, then the kids are just going to be curious or whatever, and they're going to go get the wrong idea. So you have to, there's this weird balance of it. I mean, to go back to what with this movie or whatever, and as funny as it was, like, if you don't, like, this movie would never fly, or those caricatures of WWF would never. Why? Like, what? Because why? Can you really come up with a legitimate answer other than someone's got nothing better to do than complain? You know, and that's it. So, okay, so we don't, if you read, you said Samuel Clemens, if you talk about Twain's use of vernacular, derogatory racial vernacular, was completely appropriate for his characters in the time frame where he was.
Right.
If you change that, you take away the believability of those characters. They're not going to talk like Rhodes Scholars. They're not.
Right. It's called having context and understanding the importance of context. And, he had it. That context was there. It made sense. But now we are taught to be offended by things left and right. And that's not a great place to be.
I think people enjoy it.
Just like being in the front row of this movie, not a great place to be.
Oh no, because people be throwing stuff and hitting you in the back of the head. Like, no.
They get jujubes up the.
Up the way, it'd be like that guy he pulled out of the car. Oh my god! I went to the movies with my uncle last weekend, and we went to go see Murder on the Nile.
I want to see that.
It was phenomenal.
Is it good? I was telling Kelly I gotta go.
It was a great film. I went with my wife. My mom was there with her boyfriend. My aunt, and my uncle. We were there, and we hung out and we watched the movie, and it was a good movie. Like, we left. I was like, wow, that was good. No explosions, no stupid nonsense. It was like, wow, you got to follow it. You got to pay attention. That, to me, to answer what you said previously, Jimmy, like, no kid would sit through that. That's an adult. That's an adult.
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait to see that movie because we got the reclining seats. You have a couple of cocktails. It's wonderful.
That's what we did.
It's terrific. Yeah, it's great.
Would have having a couple of cocktails helped at all during this movie, Jim?
There's not enough whiskey in Ireland for this movie.
No, Mike. The answer's no. But hey, listen.
If you could black out and forget that you saw it,
but at least it was over quick. My God, I mean, have a couple of cocktails during the Avengers thing, and you're going back and forth from the bathroom like 5 times.
Oh yeah,
I've absolutely been there.
All right, so on the subject of movies, Mike.
Yeah.
Do you think, I got into a conversation with someone, do you think movies are a thing of the past? Will we stream now? Are is the movie theater a dinosaur?
Here's the thing. I have two, I guess I have contradictory feelings about it, because on the one hand, I know that like my TV setup with my sound system on the wall in my family room, there's like no better place to watch a movie, and I get the sound, and obviously the picture quality. However, I went to go see a few weeks ago, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan was playing in our theater in downtown Stamford, and I guess every Sunday at 3:30 they pull out like what they call a classic movie, and just so happens that somebody had the wisdom to take Wrath of Khan, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go see that, for like $8 or whatever. Yeah. It was me and 3 other people in the movie theater, and even though there wasn't a big crowd, and even though the movie's like 40 plus years old, seeing it on a big screen in an auditorium, man, that's gonna beat my living room. As cozy as my living room is, as quality as the sound is, and the picture coming at me, just being with other people. I mean, imagine seeing like Raiders of the Lost Ark for the first time in your family room versus a crowded theater in 81 or 82.
You guys make excellent points. And Mike, that's an excellent point. I'll give you another example. One of the great things about going to the movie theaters is that we're actually around other people and we're having a shared experience. Yeah. Because, the last couple of years, nobody's allowed to be around anybody. So I don't know, Robbie may, we may see the death of movie theaters, just like the death of shopping malls, right? Yeah. I hope not. And, I don't know why I mention him all the time on this podcast, Mike, but I do. Tom Cruise is a lunatic. He's a lunatic. This whole thing with L. Ron Hubbard and the spaceships, it's nuts.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yes, it is. But yes, he's crazy, but he makes excellent movies. And kudos to him for holding off on releasing the Maverick movie, because the Maverick movie, these guys are actually up in real fighter jets. This is not like sitting at the USS Intrepid in New York and, going around the thing. They're up in real jets, and the G-forces are real. It's about as authentic a movie, it looks like a fighter jet movie that you can get. And he has refused to release it on any streaming service for the last 3 years, because he wants it released in the movie theater.
That's a good point.
And I think that there is purity to that. I think that's a good thing. let us wait. We can wait. The world's not going to end. I mean, maybe, hopefully not. I don't know. But we can wait, and we can all get together, and that Top Gun music is going to play through the theater, and everyone's going to be together in a packed theater again. Yep, breathing on each other, the whole thing. We're going to be fine. And we're all going to get immersed in that story, and we're going to love it. And we're going to be thankful that we waited. I hope the movie theater doesn't die. I hope that ability to come together and experience something like that doesn't end. I really do. But
that's a great point. Both of you both had really good examples. Raiders and Wrath of Khan and Maverick. That's 100% legit. Yeah, I think you're both correct.
So I guess we do have to wrap up.
We got to wrap up.
Because we got like things to do.
Adulting happens this afternoon on Sundays. Any last final thoughts on the film, James?
No, on the film, no. The film is rightfully in the rearview mirror. I still like Hulk Hogan. I hope what's going to happen. You guys are all thinking the same thing. One day we're going to wake up and there's going to be tributes playing, because he's not going to last forever, and it's kind of a miracle that he's lasted as long as he has.
They'll release "I Was a Real American."
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, past tense.
But I look, I like Hulk Hogan. There's probably worse things for kids to hear than, train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins. There's worse things they could hear. He's a symbol of a bygone era. This movie was an error, but he is a symbol of a bygone era. And I have nothing further to say about this movie. This was a lot of fun. Mike, this was great. Robbie, man.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Well, always good to catch up with Rob Salminen.
Thank you, gentlemen. I love you both and miss you a great deal.
Miss you too. Robbie, how far are you from like Raleigh and University of North Carolina in Wilmington? And
about 3 hours. I live in South Charlotte.
Okay.
Mike's been here a couple times on business. We don't live in the city. We live out kind of a little more, so like where we grew up. But no, if you were to go to Raleigh, if you were going to Raleigh, I'd make the trip 100%. It's 3 hours. It's not a big deal. But that's about 3 hours from the Triangle. Yeah.
Got it. All right.
Mike, your final thoughts on the film?
Yes.
Best part about watching it this time around was just being able to discuss it with the two of you, and we'll leave it at that, and maybe let Rick Derringer take us out here.
Well,
fellas, this was I was honored to be asked to be on Celluloid Zero. Thank you so much.
Mike, good luck with the editing on this one. You got your work cut out for you.
Yeah, you're gonna be up for 76. $76,
I think that was a quote of the day. You'd rather watch that movie than the movie just watched. All right. Until next week, Mike Carlin for Jim and Rob at Celluloid Zeros.
Take care, everybody.